Get to the church plant! Get to the church plant! Go! Now!
I'm Pete Mitchell, and he's Peyton Jones, and you're listening to Hardcore Church Planning, the companion podcast to the Church Planner Podcast and Church Planner Magazine. Each week, we'll bring you interviews from planners who are in the trenches making it happen right now. These active church planners bear it all, share their successes, their failures, and what they'd wish they'd known when they were first starting out. Listen in to discover how God is working in their church plant. Hey, Church Planner, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Peyton Jones.
And you are tuning in for Hardcore Church Planning. Peyton, why don't you introduce our guest?
Well, our guest is somebody who has personally inspired me. We're talking to Kevin Ezell, the CEO of North American Mission Board, otherwise known as NAM. Kevin, welcome on board.
Hey, well, thanks. Appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to spend some time with you.
All right, so I'm going to try to get through this without getting myself fired because you are my boss. And I've never had a boss on here before. I was about to say I've never had a boss, but I've had a boss. But, interesting story. The way that I started working for NAM was nobody else would have me. But I was sitting in a meeting where NAM was blessing church planners in LA County. And there was a guy named Rick Curtis. He's a West Region mobilizer for NAM. And he was talking about the CEO. I didn't know who you were at the time. He said, hey, I want to let you know. And he was talking to a room full of planners spread throughout LA County. He said, I want to let you know that Kevin prays for you guys, man. He has a passion for planning. And he literally said that you have a dossier. It's like the secret notebook that you carry around, but you have a dossier. It's got each city profile on it. Right. And that you carry this thing around and you pray for these cities that you could tell. He says that you correct people sometimes at meetings. No, there's 35 planners in that city, but that is your passion. And so I remember sitting in that meeting, hearing that, and at that time just thinking, I would love to work with those guys. If that's the passion, if they're praying for cities every day at the top of their leadership, man, I want to be involved with those guys. So just on a personal note, man, you inspired me. And tell us a little bit. Well, hey, I'll hand over to Pete here. Pete, take it away, man.
Well, thanks for letting me get in my one question before you take over. And
hey, let's be sure you get two questions at the beginning.
I get kind of like being married, Pete.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. Right. So one of the questions we always like to start out with, Kevin, just for our listeners who may not know you, tell us your story of how you came to faith and how you got started working with church planners.
Sure. My testimony, I always tell folks, is not a real entertaining one. It's I was saved at a very young age, at 9. And my parents went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. We'd drive by on Monday or Tuesday to see if anybody was there. I mean, we were just always there. When I was 15, it was back years and years ago, back there in bus ministries. And I had a bus route when I was 15. They dropped me off at a particular place with a bag of Double Bubble, and I would walk around inviting kids to ride my bus the next day. I just always had a yearning to do and to serve the Lord in some ways. I was kind of a weird kid in high school. I passed out the chick tracts, and I had some peculiar ways about myself when I was a kid. I wanted to be a youth minister. And so I actually went to college, and then seminary thinking I was going to be a youth minister. And then God redirected me, to be a pastor. And that's a unique story, but I don't know if you want to go into that much detail.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. It's really interesting. What was your kind of road into planning churches? Because you have a pastoral background.
Yeah, I started pastoring. My very first church was in Fort Worth, Texas. They voted me in 7-0, and then I pastored in Tennessee and Illinois. And quite honestly, I always wanted to be a church planner, and never had the opportunity. I applied to be a church planner right out of seminary, and with a Noonday Association real close here to Alpharetta, and they picked the other guy. The process was a little different than it is now, as far as going through assessments and having multiple opportunities. And I just never. So when I did get an opportunity to pastor, I was determined to plant churches. And so, and really in every church I've pastored, we've been more like a sending church or mother church, planting churches. And I just always wanted to. I've been more of a church planter cheerleader than I am. I'm no church planting expert. I just I just love church planters. Want to provide the very best we can for church planters, and that's the reason. Honestly, I felt like, when 6 years ago when I came to NAM, I love pastoring and really really enjoy the pastoral part. Just connecting with people. I enjoyed the pastoring more than I did the preaching. And so when I come to NAM, I've just kind of translated that over to church planters, they are the ones I try to pastor in a way. And I felt like coming to NAM, I could exponentially plant more churches than I could if I stayed in my singular church. And I could get other churches to hopefully mobilize other churches to come alongside and see the difference that planting can make.
Yeah, that's been pretty cool to see. Like, you'll meet with pastors all over the country and kind of give them a vision for church planting, because a lot of pastors don't, I think the Southern Baptists really kind of have, they just know, right? A lot of people don't know the history. I'm a new Southern Baptist. I always tell people I'm not a good Southern Baptist. I'm a new Southern Baptist, right? Like, I'm learning the history, but the fact that a lot of people don't realize this, that you have the International Mission Board, which is now led by David Platt, and you've got North American Mission Board, which is kind of like the domestic mission or church planting. I mean, Sin Relief is involved in that. But a lot of people, they may not realize that church planting is kind of a passion within the Southern Baptists, but you have really kind of taken it on yourself to move around and meet with pastors. Tell us a little bit about, what's happening, as you're moving around, you're meeting with pastors. What are some of the cool things that you're getting to see?
Yeah, what's really exciting is just to see the synergy developing, especially in some of the different cities. What we came up with 32 send cities, that's send with a D, of areas of focus. We plant churches all over North America, but we're focusing on some of the cities, and because 85% of North America live in or around cities. And that's where we have typically not done very well as Southern Baptists. Southern Baptists have done well in the South, but not well in the Northeast, Midwest, West, and Canada. So, as I say, most of the Southern Baptists are in the ACC and the SEC. It's the other conferences we're having challenges with. And so, what's really been exciting is like yesterday, I was in Washington, D.C., looking at a particular model of a church with a pastor, a planter from Denver, and a pastor from Texas, and just seeing the synergy and the heartbeat of a pastor in Texas that has such a yearning to come alongside a pastor in Denver, and another pastor in Florida come alongside a pastor in Denver to make something happen. This church started 18 months ago, and they run 550, 600 outside of Denver, and to see how just as excited the pastor in Florida and Texas are, that's what makes it all worthwhile. And of course, that there's stories like that happening just all over. If you talk about a Dan Coleman up in Augusta, Maine, or be it Denver or LA or San Diego or Boston, where great things are happening in Boston.
Oh yeah.
And that's the fun of it for me. And seeing these guys, what we're trying to do is where NAM comes alongside churches. NAM doesn't plant churches as much as we mobilize churches to plant churches. And we come alongside those churches and tell pastors all the time, look, you can plant one by yourself, but hopefully with our help, you could plant 3 or 5 or 10 in a 5-year period. And where we can provide the assessments and we can provide the training and we can provide, some local care for that planter, be the hands and feet of a sending church in a particular city. So just really trying to get the system organized in a way where it makes it easy to hit that easy button for people to engage in the cities.
What are some of the issues that you see, or the questions that come up with established churches when they're thinking about, planting out? Like, what are their big hurdles that they run into that you guys are able to help them with?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pete. And I try to tell planners, hey, look, be patient with some of these established churches who have been a part of the SBC for years and years and years, because when they hear church planting, quite honestly, in the South, they just hear church split. They have visions of a disgruntled youth minister going to the other side of town, taking 20 key people with them, and they think of bad things. And so what we've had to do, we've come up with Catch the Vision tours, and we have one in every of our Sin cities. And then I'd say not just one, we have multiples. But we get pastors on site, and they see and hear the heart of some of the very best planners we have, and they catch a vision for that city. And that's what's been exciting to see a church. We had recently had a church in Tennessee commit to just want to give money to a city. They said, we don't really have a planner, but we don't want to give, X amount of money to a city for the next 5 years. And you guys give it to the planner that needs it the most. And we've had, honestly, just millions and millions of resources, dollars, channeled to planters because of that type of synergy. And so the biggest challenge is just helping them understand the need. But people don't understand often that in Mississippi, it's the most churched state in all of North America. There's one Southern Baptist church for every 1,400 people.
Wow.
And what we would say is we want every state to be that way, as far as that saturated or that enriched with that many churches, where you go to New York and you have one for every 60,000, or in Canada, one for every 115,000. So, we just have so far to go in these cities, because it's harder in the cities. It's more expensive in the cities. Mm-hmm. And so we just stayed away from the cities for so long. Yep. But that's where the majority of the people are.
Yeah. And what's amazing to me, I remember, in connection with what you're saying about, trying to get more established churches to become sending or supporting churches, that really you got to go up the food chain. And that's, you guys are doing stuff on the ground for planners. I want to talk about that. But I remember you once saying that, with these vision tours, you go, think of us as like the eHarmony of church planning. Right. We're matching up the potential sending churches and giving them a vision for that city. So they adopt it and they see it as domestic mission. They're funding planners. They might even send these guys on vacation. They might pay for that if they're a supporting church. They might send the guy, like resources, books, might send him a mission team in the summer. Sorry, man, I don't mean to like go off on all this stuff, but on the 32 send cities, what are some of the cool things that NAM is doing to help make it easy for planners?
Sure. Well, one, we're trying to build a sense of brotherhood in every one of the cities. And so that's why in the Send Network is really what we call it, so they can have a sense of belonging, but just a sense of brotherhood. We found that there were planners that were in the same city for 3 to 4, 5 years and didn't know that many other planners. And their spouses were not being taken care of. And so we have a whole spouse support network. And we were able to come along and take care of them personally with some of the unique expenses they might have. I mean, we've done everything from, help pay for an emergency surgery or fly somebody home to a funeral. Or if we know of a need, then we meet the need. Our biggest challenge is making sure we just know of the need. And that's why we have a missionary in each of those Send cities. His job is to recruit planters, to take care of planters and take care of partners. And we are really eHarmony Go Church Planning, where we try to connect partners with planners and planners with partners. And some of the exciting things that are happening there is we're really developing a family. You take Boston, for instance, it's one of the better ones as far as a synergy and camaraderie that they have amongst the planners. And it didn't happen overnight, but we pay for at least 3 or 4 events a year, quarterly, where they can get together, and sometimes just the wives, or sometimes the husbands and the wives, sometimes all the family. We may send them all to a ball game or send the ladies to a play, or it just varies depending on what they prefer and what they want. what we've tried to do is not come up with a list of things we're going to do and invite them to it. We really try to find out what it is they want to do and help fund it. And so it's really worked better, for the strategy to come from the field than to come from Alpharetta.
Yeah, and I mean, just this week I had an opportunity to go into one of the houses that was being bought in San Diego. That is kind of like, hey, if you're going to come and plant in San Diego, here's a house church planter for you to come live in for a year. On top of that, there's assessment, there's training through Multiply, there's it's amazing what you guys do. I'll never forget getting my first letter from NAM after, I think most of us that have been in the church planting world, for me, pre-NAM, I can remember planting and kind of how you said in the South that everybody tends to look at the church planter as almost kind of like the enemy. Like, hey, you're going to take people from me, or, what are you doing in this neighborhood? It's kind of like Batman. Gotham belongs to me. Get out. And, basically you're not seen as a superhero. You're kind of seen as the super villain. And, I can remember, Pete will know, when we planted in Long Beach, we're in the inner city, and we had a group of guys that were getting trained up. And one of my guys goes, hey, Peyton, cause he was going to plant out. He goes, hey, there's this group of people. They're the Southern Baptists. He goes, they'll actually fund me to church plant. And I said, no kidding, huh? And he said, yeah. He goes, they'll come alongside. He goes, you got to meet these guys. They're really cool. He goes, they actually have a role called a catalyst. And at that time, that was kind of what I was doing, in our local area. And He goes, they actually have like a position for that. And we kind of thought that had died out, during the first century, or maybe Wesley had picked it up a little bit. But, tell us a little bit about, how you catalyze church planting. I mean, I've just listed off a bunch of things, but I mean, how do you keep the forward momentum going right now?
Yeah. Well, the key is to develop enough multiplying churches. The churches have a passion, so you can find indigenous churches where they are. And that's why, like you mentioned, the homes, we're buying a minimum of 128, probably 150 homes all over North America. Ideally, about 4 in each of the cities, so that we can provide residencies. And actually, a planter can go there and live up to 2 years, depending on the residency. And so we find the very best planters, and establish a residency there. And then they hopefully not only would draw high capacity planters, but it can help us assess and train those planters. And then in that, they're building to the synergy in that particular city. So, our key right now is just trying to find multiplying churches that can multiply and invest in these planters. And we're trying to, obviously, we're spending millions of dollars buying homes all over North America. Because once you buy that home, I mean, that's a resource that can be used for decades with multiple missionaries running through there that can make a huge kingdom impact. And then hopefully also at the same time doesn't lose value. We're blessed with a resource that, regardless of what funding we have, those will always be there because we go in there and pay cash for them. So it's an incredible resource. There's just no reason at all for Southern Baptists not to lead the way in church planting. We've got the resources to be the best church planting network in North America, and we don't intend to stop until we are. And that's not a sense of pride. I just think, man, God's blessed us with the resources, and we have a responsibility to be a good steward and to be the very best at this. There's just no reason we should have been so lackluster about this. We did have a passion for church planting, you're right, in the history, but then we went through a lull where we got so impressed with ourselves, we just started looking at what we did and didn't keep that up, and therefore we lost pace with the population increase, and that's why we're so far behind now and trying to catch up.
And what I didn't realize at the time is Southern Baptist, most ethnically diverse denomination in America right now.
Sure. Well, we have on our staff here at NAM, we have a mobilizer, a Chinese mobilizer, a Korean mobilizer, We have Hispanic mobilizer. We've got you ask any ethnic group we have covered. We even have a deaf mobilizer for deaf churches. We have for Native Americans, and some of those are part time because of the demand. But all of the major ethnic groups we have full time people for those. Over 55% of the churches we planted last year were ethnic church plants, and again, our biggest challenge is trying to get churches to be sending churches. We want every church we plant to have a mother church, if you will, what we call a sending church. And they have a sending church that really holds the authority, or they're giving birth to that church. But then there's supporting churches where they may have several supporting churches, but one primary sending church that they're accountable to. And that's been our challenge, is getting churches to come alongside and do that, and really get more of the ethnic churches. We have a lot of Anglo churches that will plant ethnic churches, but we want ethnic churches also to plant ethnic churches. And they're really coming around and getting a greater heart to do that. And that's what's very exciting. And as far as, our pool of high capacity leaders, we just want to try to find the very best people we can to get this done. We're out reaching people. It's not about the SBC, although we only plant SBC churches because SBC, that's where we get our funding. We made a commitment to our people to do that. But we're about reaching people. I really am confident that we can break over a period of time. And I'm thankful that, David Platt is at IMB. I think that helps in an incredible way with his platform. And then we're excited about what God's doing through church planting in North America.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that guys like Rick Warren, Matt Chandler, David Platt, they don't realize how many people are actually Southern Baptists. It's a huge denomination. I read a statistic this week that over half of the church plants that are being planted by North American Mission Board are in fact ethnic church plants. So that was pretty powerful to read that, and I think that there's such an emphasis not only on kind of the world at our doorstep, but like you said, you plant you plant SBC churches, and yet you've been really good about reaching across to other denominations. Like, for example, the Multiply. When the Multiply training was introduced, there was also, there's slots in that for people out of other denominations, like you said, to get the borders of the kingdom spread out. Like, we'll work with other denominations to get this job done. Tell us a little bit more about your kingdom-minded heart.
Sure. It's real simple. One, we wanted to finally get to a place where people wanted to hear what we had to say. We wanted our assessments to be the very best and most challenging, and we really believe that they are.
They are, yeah.
And then when it comes to things like Multiply and the training, we want to be kingdom minded, and we have designated certain spots so that others from other denominations can come and benefit from that training. Now, the difference is they come and benefit from the training, but when we go to fund church plants, we're only funding Southern Baptist church plants, but there's no reason we shouldn't share our assessments, our training, and everything possible. We're really in this together. We have some differences theologically here or there, but man, I think we've benefited greatly by having a diverse group in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kevin, before we let you go, Pete's gonna ask you a question in a second, but what are some of the coolest things on the ground with the church plants that you're hearing about? What are just some of the stories that you're like, man, that is just amazing. That fires me up. This is why I do what I do.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned one a moment ago up in Maine, Augusta, Maine. There's 1.4 million people in Augusta, Maine. There's only about 20 SBC churches there. And in the capital, Augusta, there's a guy named Dan Coleman. And Dan started church. Basically, he started something that looked like a 2-car garage. He could get about 70 people in it. And then he went to 2 services and got up to about 120. He went to 3 services and got up to close to 200. And had nowhere else to go. And we had 3 services, but there was a Catholic church that went belly up there in Augusta, and they wanted $1.8 million for it. He told us about that. We went in. We have a whole finance department here. We do church loans for church planners, and have a pretty large portfolio to be able to do that. We went in, offered them $400,000 for that church. It seats about 450, 500, and purchased it. Gave a loan to Dan and his church so that they could afford for the $400,000. They moved in it. Now a year later, they went from 200. Now a year later, they're running 800, and had 2 services in that Catholic church. Of course, we had to take out the statues and all that type of thing. But it's just exciting to see how God takes guys, and we're able to come alongside. And again, he would have gotten there perhaps, but how many years it would have taken a church planner with primarily new believers, 200 new believers, to be able to afford, that. And we were able to give them a 0% loan, get him in there. And then what we do is we get them in there, and they're now up to a point where they can go and get a commercial loan, give us our money back, and we can go help a church planner who can't get a loan. That's why we try to bridge the gap there.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. Hey, Kevin, what'd they do with the statues? Can me and Pete have one?
Yeah. I gave them all to Matt Chandler,
Yes.
It really was pretty funny. We had to they said we had to namatize it, so, but I'm not sure what they did with those.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, so I'm debating asking you to tell that joke, but, Pete, I'm gonna hand it over to you, brother.
All right. We have a final question, Kevin, that, quite frankly, a good 95% of our listeners, they only listen because they want to hear this one question and the answer to it. So here's the question for you. If you were to get into a physical fist fight with David Platt, who would win?
Oh, man. I would absolutely win.
I knew it.
Because he would never throw a punch. He's just that nice of a guy. That's why it's so hard when we pick at each other platform sometimes. He'll think of things, but he feels so guilty about saying it, he doesn't say it. And I said, man, you just got to let it go. You can't be so kind. You just got to just say it,
Yeah, man, because you're out there slinging zingers, and he's smart. I mean, he is smart.
He's brilliant. Oh, he's so much. Oh, heavens. Yeah, he's really smart. But, I'm real proud of him. He's gotten a couple of writers together, and he's got some people providing some material for him now, and he's doing better jokes.
That's awesome. So, hey, I knew you were going to lay the smack down. I'm like, Kevin's totally going to lay it down. So, yeah, Kevin, you just, what? That's normally our last question. But you got to tell this joke, man. It's a good joke.
What's that about the
Billy Graham? You got to tell
Billy Graham. Oh.
Yeah, you got to tell it.
No, I'm hoping I remember all of it. But it happened back years ago when Billy and Ruth had just moved up in the mountains, and she needed something from the store, and so he went down to get some stuff from the store. And when he did, he was robbed, and the guy said, "I want all of your money. Give me all your money." And so he took out his wallet and gave it to him, and the robber looked at the billfold and saw his ID and said, "Billy Graham." And he went, "Billy Graham? Billy Graham? Are you the real Billy Graham?" And he says, "Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am." And he said, well, my word, I am so sorry. Here's your wallet back. We Baptists got to stick together. So anyway, that's a bad job of telling it, but
no, you did fine, man. And Pete, many people don't know this. We say it like it's a curse, but he is the son of a Baptist minister.
Hey, there's a song about that, isn't it? The son of a preacher man.
It's got to be.
Indeed.
I can't believe you made me a Baptist again. I was like, I cannot believe you made me a Baptist again. I never thought that happened.
Yep. There were worse things. The next thing we're working on is making Pete into a Baptist minister. So, stay tuned. So,
Pete, just remember, if you ever ask, it's 2 Corinthians, not 2 Corinthians. Just remember.
I will remember that. Yes.
Well, hey, our guest today has been Kevin Ezell. If you want to catch up with what NAM is doing, North American Mission Board, and check out all this stuff, man, there was stuff today I didn't even know that NAM was doing. That, the stuff with the loans and what have you. Check it out at nam.net and, kind of see some of the stuff that we just touched on. And if you're looking to get involved with church planting and you are thinking, man, I really could use maybe that network, maybe some of the other stuff they talked about, nam.net. And Kevin, thanks for coming on, man. It's been great having you.
Hey, listen, it's been a privilege. Been a really privilege. I appreciate the opportunity.
And Arnold, sign us out.
Remember, if you are called to church planting, go hardcore or go home.
You've been listening to Hardcore Church Planting. Hardcore Church Planting has been brought to you by the Church Planter Podcast and the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the App Store for both Apple and Android devices. If you like this episode, leave us a positive review. If you didn't like this episode, we'll be happy to give you your money back.